Okay, I have a very small number of thingamabob thingers to bring up, and then I'll okay, all right, couple things, couple little pieces of tech or theory, application, functional theory, I should mention. First thing first is I think command grab should be incredibly liberally used. I think, okay, literally, genuinely, like, I'm completely fucking serious about this. When you do, like, this, or you're, like, +2 or anything, I think your primary frame trap tool, if you think the opponent's going to fucking press buttons or something, and you want to frame trap them, I think your primary frame trap tool should be command grab. I completely, straight up, the potential reward, damage, drive gauge, opportunity for wind, opportunity for, like, your setup afterwards is fucking great, honestly. Really good for relative to the other grappler characters other than Marisa. But, so yes. The thing, my rationale for this, and I have yet to see this disproven, is that there's a lot of, like, okay, command grab, why be timid about it? Well, it's riskier than normal throw. But in this game, normal throw is riskier than it was in the last game. It has more total recovery frames, more susceptible to neutral jump, more susceptible to backdash, more susceptible to characters with instant air options or whatever. And if it gets teched, you like push to full screen and you don't really get much out of it. Lily's normal throw is fine. I think it's totally fine. It is a good normal throw, but I think you should, one, instill the conditioning of the command grab, and two, I think that everything that you do in this game is so inherently risky. Even just going for a light kick, right? If you're gonna take the +2 and you're just gonna go for your 4-framer, you're taking a risk there. You get fucking level 3'd. You get level 3'd on that. You get DP from Ken into drive rush into fucking throw looping you over and over, fucking across the screen, because he gets Oki off of his EXDP. You get perfect parried into some punish counter hit that takes off a full bar of your drive gauge and puts you in the corner. Everything you do is risky in this game. So I think that inherently buffs command grabs, not only because of that and also the existence of the parry, which is weak to grabs. I think that command grabs in this game, relatively speaking, are not that risky. They are risky, but everything is risky, so don't fucking worry about it. Just fucking throw them over and over and over again. Just throw constantly. Just constantly, when you have a frame trap opportunity, when you have like the spatial opportunity, you throw, and that will condition them to have to do specific actions. That's one of the only things that will really actually have to condition them to either do invincible moves or fucking jump back or backdash, which you have options to deal with. And also, her normal frame trap damage sucks. Like, it just sucks. If you spend meter on it, it super sucks. Just make the command grab the default, and then when they start, and then you think they're gonna try to avoid it, do something that'll hit them harder. Do a raw drive rush, right? If you're +2, do a raw drive rush. You'll catch the backdash. You'll catch the jump back. I've talked about, your options, your grappler option, mix-up options, the rotation of values in other videos, my other Lily videos. I'm just here to say, go nuts with the command grab. Just do it. Okay, 2. Alright, this is actually important. Use medium wind stock when you're in neutral. Medium wind stock if you just want to get a wind. Medium wind stock should be your default. Even if you're at full screen, even if you're like this, I don't recommend doing light wind. I mean, you have to do it, it's a part of the character, but I think more frequently you should do medium wind. Because here's the major difference. Light wind will only give you your wind stock at the end of the move. Okay? So, for example, if I do back fierce into light wind stock, it's -28. If I do forward fierce, it's -27. So I can demonstrate that here, I think, with DI. So if they react to the animation as they are wont to do, This will hit you. See how I did not even get my wind stock there? It didn't even finish the animation, so I didn't get my wind stock. If I do it off of this, I get my wind stock on the very frame that he hits me. So that's the exact frame. It's like 2 frames out from the move recovering. That is when you get the wind stock. If you do medium wind stock, you get your wind stock the first active frame. So this takes 45 frames for you to get your wind stock. This takes 23 frames for you to get your wind stock. And this is important because if you do this in neutral and you get hit for it, which can happen with either one of these, if you do the light one and they just happen to drive rush and punch you in the face at that moment, or if you do this and they happen to like DI you at that moment or something, if you do this, you'll get your wind stock. You get your wind stock in 23 frames, so you are much more likely to get your wind stock if you do medium than you are if you do light. Because if you get hit out of it, even just a little bit before the move finishes, you don't get anything, you get hit, you take the damage, and now you don't even have wind for your defensive situation to like try to fight back or try to push your way out with. With EX Spire. Wind Spire, specifically. So I've talked in other videos about how it's important to at least have 1 wind stock when you're on defense. Use medium, get it in the 23 frames, not the 46. This also has important meaning for zoning character. You do medium wind stock between some fireballs or something, there's enough of a gap, a little bit of a gap. So long as you get to that 23 frame mark, it'll be easier in some cases than others, but if you hit that 23 frame mark, you'll eat the fireball, but you'll get your wind. Now, unfortunately, the only instances where you can do this on the reaction to a fireball are the particularly slow fireballs. So, like, if Chun-Li throws her light fireball at you, you can react to this, do medium wind stock, you'll get hit by the fireball, but you'll have enough time to get your wind stock out, even if you're quite close to the opponent. The problem is, Chun can usually combo you by drive rushing behind it. However, you have other counterplay options that I've talked about in other videos. You can counterplay that with jump over Condor Dive or back fierce to trade through the fireball, etc. You have a couple other options at your disposal. You can backdash and then do the same rotation of options. But yeah, so if you think your opponent, especially like a Ryu, is going to do like a fireball, you can get medium wind stock in between them, and so long as you hit that 23 frame mark at or before the moment that the fireball collides with your hurt box, you will get +1 wind. What do I've got? I've kind of been, I've been trying to take more and more abstract. I have an abstract, like, theory of consciousness of, the structure of a Lily game plan in a match, but I'm still not ironed out. I'll take a picture of my fucking notebook. I've been trying to... This game is so much not about... And I've had to adjust to the reality that it's not about some, ooh, unique... If you hit this at this particular angle or within this speed or you get this meaty setup, it lets you do this thing. Or so I can't really, you know, focus on very specific tech of physically what you can and can't do so much. And yeah, I've been having to the problem is this game is like very I mean, it's very hard to explain. Like, things happen. I don't know. It's simple and yet it's complex, because like there's a simplicity to the fact that no matter what you do, like what gambling strategy you take or whatever, like let's say you're in the corner and you're getting Kenned on or Kimberly'd on, right? There's no theory of structure that will change the actual mechanics of the situation to make there be a smart thing to do. But at the same time, so in that way it's simple in that the strike, throw, whatever, like, just strike, reversal, anything game is particularly simple on Direct Oki for most of the game. And, like, even not just Oki, but just, like, the interactions of footsies. Sometimes you lose a footsie's interactions and you'll take, like, a Lily medium punch or something. Or maybe you'll lose a footsie's interaction and, you know... Oh, I put down my super gauge, that's why I'm confused. Sometimes you'll lose a footsie's interaction and take this much damage. And it's not like the players involved are agreeing to some sort of high-stakes gamble. It's just sometimes... I mean, in a way they are. Like, if you commit to, like, a heavy button and you commit to just drive rush canceling it, right away, then you're kind of gambling, but also maybe not, which is the weird thing about the drive gauge mechanic in this game, is that if you happen to do this, and it just happens to clip anything, like they whiffed a jab, or they're on the startup of some move, or they just started jump startup or something, and it happens to clip, you can get, like, half health. You can get the entire game off of just one random button that you just decided to drive rush cancel. That happens constantly. That's, like, one of the main forms of just, oh, suddenly I just got huge rewards, suddenly damage. Suddenly the match tilts and turns in this person's favor in a significant way because I just happened to do a button and I just drive rush canceled it, and through the whims of fucking fate, it happened to connect on hit for whatever the opponent did or didn't do. And at the same time, if you just do that thing, if you just do that same interaction on block, you know, maybe nothing comes out of it. Maybe you do that exact same commitment, it's on block, maybe you just go for a throw and it just gets teched and you go back to neutral and nothing really happens. Or maybe the meter that you spent doing that drive rush cancel winds up costing you, either because you get low enough that it becomes a problem for you defensively, or you don't have the drive gauge that you need when you do land a hit later on, that if you had fucking mindlessly drive rush canceled, you would have probably gotten the game off of, you know? So, like, the game is simple in that there's a simplicity that the ultimate ask of the game is just you throw out a move, the opponent maybe moves or throws out a move, one of you hits, and maybe you get ridiculous reward from it for no reason. Or maybe you don't, and nothing really happens, and everything is just, like, theoretical. Everything constantly has some % chance to be a big deal, or, like, not a deal at all. Very insignificant. Anything that you do, anything that you commit or overcommit. So it's very hard to structure a strategy around that fact. And as someone who's not, like, a fucking super high-level player at reading people and getting these kinds of decisions and circumstances right, you know, if everything comes down to the fucking Oki vortex, strike, throw, reversal, whatever, DI in the corner, anything like that, and... you know, if you're really strong at that, it matters. If you just, there's certain things that you can control as a player as just, like, situational asks. Most of them, as time's gone on, are just, like, more situations to input perfect parry preemptively. This is honestly the range with the most actual fucking, like, conditioning and reading going on. Because this is the range where back and forth interactions result in habits, which results in consistent timings of someone pressing, like, this low forward at this timing or whatever, which results in opportunities to perfect parry. And so these are, like, this is the area where, like, the actual reading is going on more so. You know, like this is where the habits and the tendencies are forming that people can anticipate to get a sudden advantage, get a sudden knockdown, get whatever. Whereas the actual Oki, like point blank, you have to guess, is still split in so many ways that it's all good decisions and it's all bad decisions, you know? It's honestly kind of shocking how much how much it's just rock, paper, scissoring. Not necessarily in that it's just a three-way decision, but, you know, everything that you'll take will more or less wind up dealing the same amount of damage and misery to you. You know, throws deal less damage, but then it's easy to land throws, and it's scary to try to get away from throws, and throws build back their meter, because they don't have to spend any meter to do it, and it's a long animation, so they get a bunch of drive gauge back. You know, DI combos on the corner don't necessarily do, like, a ton of damage, but they are also very, like, you can land them in situations where you normally can't open the opponent up with anything else at that particular moment unless they just give you an opportunity. And, yeah, I mean, it's much more damage than you would like to be taking for it. So, anyways, I've been trying to work out my theory crafting for Lily in an abstract sense because, like I said, there's a lot of situations where there's no solid ground to this game. Like, in Street Fighter V, I would make Falk videos, and then the Falk theory is very simple, right? It's very straightforward. You have good normals, you have good high-damage anti-air, a very basic high-damage anti-air, relatively speaking, and it wasn't as much as, like, Seth's stand-a heavy kick or Luke's back roundhouse or anything, but, you know, consistently conditioning the opponent, and you don't have very good Oki in mid-screen, but it's like whatever, you can do whatever. Poke, chip damage was a thing in that game, real fucking chip damage, not like in this game. So, the game plan with Falk is that there's a solid ground here, and that you control your area, you control your modicum of space with your good normals. The opponent has to get in. If they do get in, and they manage to, like, push you to the corner, you have your reversal, which is, like, you know, the one button of it makes it very convenient in a lot of situations. And the fact that throw loops were not particularly oppressive, and you didn't have to be constantly worrying about reacting to a DI, the game plan was still relatively straightforward. Like, if you have the life lead, then you have the life lead, and you may be in the corner, but the stakes are relatively the same. Now, the things that altered that fact was, like, V-trigger and to a certain extent meter, depending on the character, where the situations and the risk-reward and the spacing and, like, who is at the advantage currently was still the same and made sense, but at the same time, the person who had V-trigger usually had, like, way more damage to obtain off of their next interaction. And then there were some characters that could just force the interactions. Like, I don't know, like half the characters, some were better at it than others. Whereas in this game, everything is on a fucking knife's edge all the time. There's no, like, I don't control this space. I may have good normals in this range. I don't fucking control this space, man. People can, if they wanted to run over me, if they wanted to really get in my face, it would not be, like, that hard for them to do so. If they mash enough forward dashes and fucking run kicks and drive rushes and jumps and jump heavy punch and whatever else, and mix in a couple normals, mix in a couple whatever your character's specials are, and, like, throwing all that in the kitchen sink at you. Yeah, I don't control this fucking space. When I have like a bit of a life lead, I don't have a fucking life lead. That's not real. There's so many ways that you can just suddenly just dip and not have health anymore. You can just be dead. You can just Like, you can just whiff a jab, like here. I can be like, we can be here, and then I can whiff like one light. I could have like a 50% health lead. I could be like in this situation, and if I'm in Street Fighter V and I'm playing Falk, this is a good situation. This is normal. I control the space. I can anti-air and deal even more damage, and I can just do whatever I want, and it's fine. And I can back off even further if I don't want to engage. It's not a big deal. But in this, if I whiff like one jab, just one action of any kind that happens to get tagged by like Ken's low forward, he'll drive rush cancel that. You're gonna take like about 2,000 damage. You're in the corner. You're gonna take like 3 fucking throws from his constant throw loop out of fear of his incredibly damaging meaties. His drive impact damage in the corner is absurd. And then it's just like, and then after you've taken those like 2 throws and like whatever, and then you're blocking and you don't have all your drive gauge anymore, and in him throwing you, he built all the drive gauge back that he even fucking spent to do that low forward drive rush that brought you to the corner on 1 hit in the first place. And it's like, it's not a health lead. There's not a, you're on a fucking knife's edge. Every single situation is like danger time in fucking Guilty Gear Xrd. Like, every single thing is like this percent chance, this theory of explosiveness, where everything can fucking fall apart if you get clipped by the wrong limb at some point. Clipped by a stand heavy punch into drive rush, and it happens to hit, and he just committed to the drive rush, regardless of what was happening, and it just happens to be real bad. And then you're in a real bad situation, and you can just earnestly try to guess your way out of it, and you can guess wrong, and you can fucking die. So instead, I'm thinking, how do I make sense of a game like this, right? If this is not a life lead, right? If that doesn't mean I'm winning, if that doesn't mean I have like some control over the situation and some stability to the match, then what does it mean? How do I look at the game? How do I interpret the game? And how I should go about playing it if the game is like this. And so, at a certain point, you know, you can have some abstract management of mental game. You can have an abstract management of, like, baiting the opponent into defanging them, you know? Walk up and block a low forward drive rush and take off the drive gauge without having the consequences be that bad, etc. Okay, this is an aspect of like kind of what I'm referring to. Is like if I could like have an inkling. I see that he has like 4 or more bars. We're kind of in that range. I think he's going to like look for low forward drive rush. So I'll try to like change the variables on this aspect of the match, and I'll give it to him. I'll like walk up and block the low forward drive rush, and then I'll like drive reversal after it. The problem with this is that when the game came out, it was known that you could, if they do a drive rush cancel off of a normal, it costs 3 bars, and then you can drive reversal it for 2 bars. Technically, they can beat this with like a super, or certain characters can do other things. The problem is, as you can see here, if you were to do it, if you were to wait for the green flash and see it and then drive reversal, it is not, like, it is basically impossible to actually get it to work out against, especially characters like Ken, because what's actually happening here is when Ken does drive rush into stand jab. Now the important thing about that is stand jab is a total of 13 frames, so 4 frames startup, whatever, active frames, then recovery, etc. 13 frames overall. Now, if I do this and I drive rush into whatever... Yeah, there's better characters to... But anyways, 15 frames. A light that's 15 frames will recover at the same time as just blocking. So if you drive rush into nothing but blocking, you can block by that point. If you drive rush into this button, you'll be -5, so it's close. So we do the math. 18, -3, whatever. 15 frames would be the same. 14 frames is faster. 13 frames, even faster than that. So the thing about this is that because Ken does stand jab after this drive rush, he actually recovers 2 frames faster than he even normally would if he just did nothing and blocked. He recovers even faster. So it's even 2 frames harder to actually get the fucking drive reversal to come out and hit him in time. And DJ is 1 frame worse. DJ is the worst about this. His stand jab is like 12 frames total. So this is the problem, is because you kind of have to do... You kind of have to, like, do this preemptively. You just have to assume. You just have to... And in some cases, it's fine. Like, if I block Ken's low forward, yeah, whatever. Just do it. It's guaranteed on low forward, so... So, that is something that I feel like we all need to implement more into our game plans, is having an inkling of, like, defanging the constant threat of random button that happened to clip you in some way into drive rush, into huge damage. Defang that from the arsenal. The other problem with this game is that, like, supers, there's no way to stop your opponent from having and getting super. So level 3 will always be a thing, and so at some point you will always be, like, at half health and 1 hit away from dying. And there's no way to stop your opponent from having that offensive power. You can't fight the opponent in such a way that they don't wind up with their level 3. Now, in terms of using level 3 for its... If you get Oki from it for its positional advantage, like a Ken, or using it for its drive gauge propensity, so rebuilding yourself back 2 bars and stealing about 2 bars from the opponent. 1.5, rather. So anyways, whether or not you see it as valuable in that capacity for changing the balance of the drive gauge between yourself and the opponent, and maybe if you get some situational benefit from it, that's one like argument in terms of not using it as a closeout. But the argument in terms of using it as a closeout is that well, one, there's a kind of Persona 4 Arena-esque thing going on where if you save your level 3 for a closeout, you can skip their bottom 25%, so you can skip the range of their access to their CA. But the arguments in favor of saving the level 3 until you can kill and not using it for its you know, situational advantages that it'll give afterwards is that the game is really... The other mechanics of the game, specifically the drive gauge, are really balanced for you to splurge everything at the end. So you are very much rewarded for, like, overspending and spending, like, the last drop and whatever right at the end for, like, a big combo, or just, like, for the convenience of the confirm that you use to go into the super. And there's, like, a definitiveness to it, and you get to save all of your super gauges up to that point for options, just depending on how much utility your character's supers give you. But, yeah, there is, like, that splurge factor where if you keep your level 3, like, at this point right now, maybe if you had slightly more health, but if I were to spend the, like, just do some confirm, spend the level 3, not go for the kill, whatever, wind up in, like, this range, and probably decent for Lily, because she's, like, 1 command grab away from winning, but at the same time, let's say it's, closer to let's say it's like here, then is this worth the situation for the... Because, like, the drive gauge stuff is real, but it's also theoretical. It's real, you get real drive gauge back, and you take real drive gauge from the opponent, but the value from that is completely theoretical and potential. Maybe the opponent will just get all their drive gauge back right away because you won't be able to force your way in with your offense because you get no Oki off this level 3. Maybe the drive gauge you took won't fucking matter at all, and they'll just kind of recover it naturally. Maybe your drive gauge won't matter that much. It has more likelihood to matter if you're Lily, but... And then you're in this situation, you have no super, and now you have to get like a real fucking win. And just having the level 3 available when the opponent gets like half health or below just makes it so threatening for the opponent and like obnoxious for the opponent to just constantly have this ability to just like any hit, you can splurge everything and you can just ice them. And, you know, you can do it off of perfect parries, and the level 3 will still only scale to 50%, even if you even off perfect parries, and anything you splurge off of a perfect parry, etc. You have much more ability for, like, to create an opening from a much higher level of health for your opponent to get the W. And, like, life leads kind of matter in this game, but also, like I said, that potential feeling, this game has much less neutral control. You're not Falk with a 40% life lead in this game. It would not fucking matter. That's difficult for me to decide on between those values. Because when you spend your level 3 early in a match for like the situational whatever, there are certain situations where it's just too lucrative to pass up. Like, the opponent overspent themselves, they're at like 2 bars left, or even less, and you land a hit. Great idea to go into it. You can probably burn them out. It's not that difficult to conceive of the possibility of burning them out. It's actually quite likely to occur. You can gamble on that potential future. Now, in this sense of resources, all of your resources are gambling in the theoretical, right? All of your resources are gambling. Your super is your only flat, real resource that you'll basically always be able to land some hit in the match that you can confirm into your level 3. You'll always get a fucking level 3. You know, your super, it'll always exist. There's some chunk of health that's gonna leave the opponent unless you do it as a reversal or something and it gets baited or blocked. But yeah, the point is that when you land a level 3, you're losing all of your super gauge, so you're taking a gamble on the theoretical future that you won't need super gauge as you keep going, and you're taking a gamble on the much more short-term, immediate future on whether or not you can capitalize on the shift in drive gauge that occurs from the level 3. Now, in my opinion, and this is very much just my personality, not necessarily like a mathematical theory, it's just my personality leading me to say this, I would rather save level 3s for the kill. In most instances, I would prefer to save a level 3 for a convenient kill instance, because... especially with Modern Lily, because... then you get to... you can only get into your level 3 by splurging with Modern Lily. Because you have to do like that. If you're landing... I mean, off of lights. Get into your level 3 off of lights. And the other reason why I feel this way is because I feel like it's less gambly. I feel like this game is very gambly and has a lot of elements that you're rolling dice on. Not just in, obviously, the guessing situations, but the way you spend and save your meter and your super gauge whenever you're gambling on individual rounds and whether or not you commit super gauge and at what point in the match you commit super gauge. You're gambling on whether to spend some super and then build it back later, or keep your super for now but lose an opportunity to land it and or lose an opportunity to build more back. And there's a thing that I've, like, mentioned, like, in a couple of my videos, like, just mentioned in just to describe the technical aspects of how the game works, but not even introducing it into some theory of strategy. But, like, there are certain things in the game that just build more super. So, some matches, you might generate more super per interactions and damage interactions than others. Matches with lots of perfect parries, you build way more super relative to the damage you do, because your damage is scaled by the perfect parries, but your super gauge is not scaled at all. You build full super gauge for any combo you do off a perfect parry. So, matches that just have a bunch of perfect parries, you're gonna build a shitload more super in those ones. Matches where someone DIs a lot. DI, as I've mentioned in videos, generates a shitload of super gauge for both players, relative to the damage that it does. So, there are certain aspects that will change the balance of, like, how much super you can reasonably expect to generate, and whether or not you should spend it now or save it now. But, yes, my opinion is that I want to save level 3s in the majority of circumstances. I want to save level 3s for the... I am a fucking idiot because I forgot to put it back there. That's why it's not coming out. For a kill. Because I feel like it removes an element of short-term gambling that I think just makes the game more difficult. I think that any player is aspiring to remove as much gambling from their gameplay as possible. Almost any player that's trying to, like, seriously improve it is trying to remove the inconsistency from their play and from their results. Short-term or long-term, like in an individual situation or across a round, across a match, across many matches. Degrade the inconsistency. And I feel like I want to think of this game in terms of looking for opportunities to remove the short-term guesswork and dice rolling a bit, and look for more guarantees. Now, the thing that I have not wrapped my head around, and the thing that I have not figured out and decided upon, is, like, when and where, how to... Look, when you have two options, when you have, like, 3 things that you can do, and it's not like one thing is particularly smarter than the other, you have 3 legitimate things you can do. I'm playing in neutral, I can hang out, I can drive rush and go in like that, I can check and see if they're anti-airing, or see if I get lucky with a jump in, whatever. I have a couple of legitimate actions I can do, and they're all, you have to represent all of them, and you have to mix up your options and whatever, but the point is, in fighting games, you often have plenty of stuff you can do, and you kind of have to make some sort of decision as to why you choose one thing and not another thing. Sometimes it's just, and there's lots of different reasons, theoretical reasons for why you would choose one thing and not another thing. Lots of different reasons, including having very few reasons and acting on impulse and whatever. But you still, when you measure out, like, the logic of using this instead of that, in terms of structuring your game plan, gaming out your strategy before going into a match of how you think your character should be played most effectively, you have some reason for doing the things. So, like, I talked in my Ken versus Luke video, I use some, like, there's, like, 2 ways that you can go about rationalizing things. Broad theory that, you know, is not scientific necessarily, but makes sense and might work out in terms of the way that you theorize. You know, like I talked about, you know, the theory of risk relative to having your game plan be structured around the corner and Oki and the threat of losing yourself to the corner and going for low damage but high corner carry combos, as opposed to Luke, who does high damage in mid-screen and doesn't have to gamble on Oki and stuff. And there's like theoretical arguments there. I don't know how much the numbers actually prove or disprove any of those ideas, but then you have actual real fucking math. Like, okay, Ken versus Luke. Well, Ken does this much fucking damage in the corner off of these options and stuff, and this is his rotation of options, and he does enormous fucking corner damage, and Luke does not do anywhere near as much corner damage, or have as oppressive as a throw loop situation. So that damage off of a meaty that's like plus on block and stuff, off of your throw loop, compared to what Luke can get from theirs, you can compare the specific situations and the specific risk-reward mathematics using just real fucking math. And that's one of the few instances you can use real math in this game and not more abstract theory. Now, the thing about that is I don't even know how to approach some of these drive gauge expenditures. Like, cause it's so fucking complex. And not complex like a complex math equation. I could do a complex math equation if it would just take me a while. But it's just so fucking chaotic, the influences that result. So it's like, I land this hit with Lily. What should I do? What should I do? Let's say, okay, first things first, you can single hit confirm this. Okay, so do I look to single hit confirm that? Now, I'm already asking myself a question. I can single hit confirm this, but do I try to? Because any mental energy that I put trying to focus on single hit confirming that is mental energy that will make it harder to react to other things that I might need to react to. And is the reward, the potential reward, worth it? Is it worth it in the first place, just as a bare concept of the character's risk-reward and potential reward for the situation? And is it worth it relative to the tendencies that the opponent is exhibiting and the likelihood that swinging that out and looking to hit confirm it will be rewarding? So that's already a situation where I'm like, I don't know if this is, I don't know if this is worth the mental energy required to focus on executing this particular skill. You can do it. I don't know if it's worth doing. But then, let's say you are looking to hit confirm it. Is it worth spending this meter? Is it worth spending 3 bars for that? Let me put the opponent's health back to full. Is it worth spending 3 bars for something like that? You know, and you can do different combo routes, depends on what you do, but like then you have to theory craft, you know, do you take mid-screen Oki? Do you take pure damage? With characters like this, do you take a win stock, etc.? Is that worth the bars that you spend? Let's say you do take it to the Oki. Does it matter where your resources are? Your drive gauge, your super, their drive gauge, their super, your health, their health? How many win stocks you have? Is it worth spending the 3 bars, considering the potential that might happen, and also what you could have spent that meter on? Now, is it more worth it to just, like, fucking just take the hit, and then instead take the 0 on hit, and then just drive rush and do something? Like 1 bar drive rush afterwards. Or, take some sort of opportunity, you know? It depends on, like, 'cause getting a drive rush on hit, especially from a heavy, perfectly reasonable reward, you know, like, you would probably, and I would probably agree that that's worth doing if you have full meter or whatever, you know, Good way to spin the meter and get legitimate reward out of it. And you're only putting yourself down to 3 bars, not that bad. And you'll be in control of the next situation. But you're not in control, you'll just have Oki in the next situation. But your control could dip immediately. You could go for a meaty and get perfect parried and back thrown, and when you get back thrown off of your fucking perfect parry, you lose a full bar of drive gauge from the punish counter on the back throw. And then, so now you're at like fucking 2.5 bars, and now you're in the corner. And now, was it worth it to do this much damage to the opponent now that you've been fucking back thrown and now you're in the corner? How quickly can you leave the corner? Maybe you leave the corner really quickly. Maybe you fucking guess wrong and just get vortexed and die. And then, so you have to measure all of that potential compounding of guessing and circumstantial risk-reward situations onto that meter expenditure. Because you can't control the situation afterwards. You can't truly control it. There's only certain characters where that you fight against that you have a lot of control against. Like, if you're fighting Zangief, you can create real walls that are like, you physically cannot move at me fast enough, so I can back off and wait for my meter to regain. I can expend a lot of screen space, but, you know, screen space, it matters and it doesn't. Screen space doesn't matter that much when you consider, like, how much screen space you'll lose if you get clipped by one attack into Drive Rush anyways. But then, you know, a character like Zangief doesn't... None of his hits will have very good corner carry anyways, so... But, like, the reality is, when you come out of this situation, you'll be down 3 bars, and there's no way that you can truly guarantee that things won't get completely fucked in the next 2 seconds. In the next 2 seconds, no matter what you do, how you strategize, back off, play safe, play passive, play spacing, you cannot guarantee that you will not start getting fucked up immediately, in seconds. And maybe that drive gauge, you'll want it for something else after that point. So, I don't know how to do the math or even the theory of... like, how to have a logical reason of spend this meter in this situation, guaranteed, yes, unless it's really obvious, unless you can, you know, there's some major advantage that you'll obtain from doing so. But, yeah, I mean, is there mathematics? Is there a formula that will explain whether or not the meter expenditure won't put you in a bad situation, or... like, whether or not it's not worth trying to look for something even more valuable? Like, if you're like Ken, okay, you can get like a low forward and buffer it into Drive Rush, but maybe it'd be better to wait until you get a Stand Fierce buffered into Drive Rush, and you'll get more work because you won't get the same scaling, and you'll possibly have different routing options. Because if the opponent's crouching, you'll be able to do crouch loops off of Stand Fierce, which you wouldn't be able to do off of low forward in a Drive Rush, unless it's a counter hit. It often is a counter hit. But then it's like, okay, but is it worth, like, let's bring it back to this crouching heavy punch. Okay, you can single hit confirm this, so is it worth spending this drive gauge in this particular manner? Versus, like, is it better to spend it in some other way that you might potentially get more reward, or spend in a way that, like, spend to not... Let's say you're at 1 bar already, and then you land the hit, and you put yourself down to, like, 2, right? Like this, like 2.5, whatever. And that might be a rough situation to put yourself in if you don't if things start going badly for you. But it's like, the problem with this game is that no matter what decision you make, you have to end up being right afterwards. Like, you can make all these decisions to try to manage your resources, but the reality is, if you're put into a guessing situation and you guess incorrectly, afterwards, it doesn't matter what resources you have, you will just take the damage from guessing incorrectly. So, you know, So that's why I think a lot of people look at this game and approach it like, if I can land a hit, I will, because it's a guarantee. Like I was saying with the level 3 thing. If I can land a hit and get it into Drive Rush, I fucking will, and I'm not gonna gamble on whether or not I'll win the next interaction and possibly get more reward for my meter, or like spend less meter or something but get a tantamount similar reward. You know, they will take the situation that they have already won. You know, bird in hand, etc. Now, the problem is, another problem with this game, another like thing that makes this very difficult, is that when you look at your replays in this game, your wins are much more a result of your opponent's errors than your own talents. Like, okay, you know, there's some rotation of guessing and there's some rotation of reacting to things like jump-ins, like DIs, etc., like whatever things you can perfect parry, fireballs, whatever. Mixture between guessing and anticipating and reacting. But, where's I going with this? But the reality is that, like, when you look at your replays, the reason that you won, or the reason that you got more reward from your hits than the opponent got from their hits, is not because of your own talent of decision making. Like, realistically, like I used to play like a little game in Street Fighter V with a buddy of mine while he was learning the game, where I would just pick some character and the only move I would do throughout the entire match is uppercut. And so that would be my whole gameplay. If I were to play footsies, if I were to anticipate when he was going to throw a limb, I would uppercut, and if I was wrong, I would get hit. I would mix him up. I would either throw or I would walk in his face and uppercut. And that's the only thing I did, and then to nerf myself relative to him, so we could play matches off of that, etc. But that's, in a way, that's kind of how this game works. Is that you can spend meter on things that are, like, you can spend meter on these little hits or whatever that will give you some reward, but the reality is, the actual reality is that, let me switch to Classic, because Lily's strike damage is higher in Classic. Let me just switch characters, because it'll make more sense to me. Because the actual reality is that, take Ken, right? You land low forward. That, not a lot of damage. It's a fucked up situation afterwards. You're in a terrible spot. Not that much damage, honestly. Maybe he did this instead. Bit more damage. Still not like you can take that. That's less than a light SPD. But let's say you get a really fucking bad hit, right? So let's say you just did some button, like, just crouch jab. Just crouch jab! And, like, you get clipped by Stand Fierce from Ken. It's on fucking counter hit, because of course it is. You have taken an enormous amount of damage for, like, more or less the same amount of resources. I mean, in this particular example, it's not quite the same, but, Luke would be a better example. But, like that's, okay, let's go to Luke, right? So if you just get like a drive rush this, and then you confirm it into that, because that's like your confirm or whatever. Or, and then you get a knockdown, and then you maybe do like a shimmy, and then you do this on block, right? But compare, even that, the damage plus like the actual thing afterwards, plus a throw afterwards, compared to just... Thank you. So, you just get clipped by that, right? And that's like a third of your life. And then that's not even spending any super, and then he lands like Not even, let's say he just clips you again. Like, not even, you didn't make a major mistake, you didn't, like, get shimmied or whatever, you just, like, it was an awkward, neither one of you were pressing a button, but you're both in that space, and then he hits heavy punch and you happen to hit your button at the same time, you lose at this instant. And now he's, like, basically two-touched you, right? And he doesn't need full bars, that spends full bars, but all he needs to do that is 3 bars plus 1 little smidge, and he can do that same combo, as long as he has level 3. So he opens up, you just press anything or you get clipped trying to jump, you get clipped by this. And then you're in this space, you get clipped again. It wouldn't... I don't think this is a specific two-touch situation, but it's very fucking close. And you would only have to take, like, 1 extra hit from something else throughout a match. And that's it. That's game. You got clipped for, like, pressing a jab, maybe, in, like, a neutral when nothing was happening. That's a reality of this game. And the thing is, you can't plan to do that because... 1, only fishing for those gigantic fucking damage things is not necessarily realistic all the time. 2, a lot of those things that yield that gigantic damage are not really hit confirmable. Like for Luke, you have to just commit to this stand heavy punch. You can't hit confirm it into DR, you just have to do it. And if it hits, then you get stupidly rewarded. So yeah, it's like, fucked up. So, that's another problem with these matches, is not only is it hard to orchestrate how to get that to happen for yourself more often, because you can fish for stuff, but then if the fishing doesn't yield random purchase by chance, then you're not getting it, and maybe you're getting hit, maybe you're leaving yourself open, maybe when you try to fish for these things, you lose the interactions, etc. And it's like... And what's worse is that, like, if you and your opponent share the same one fucking brain cell, and you're both doing this thing where you're gonna fucking two-touch the opponent, right? So you swing with your fucking heavy thing that you can drive rush into, like, huge damage, and you both do, like, you're both playing characters, you have, like, some heavy, you swing it at more or less the same time, but just one of you happens to be slightly faster. That's the opponent... If you're, like, just, like, 2 frames in between each other on hitting, but yours hits slightly faster, that's you getting a third of the opponent's health, and you are only 2 frames away from you losing a third of your health. So if we turn all that together, that's, like, 70% of a full life bar in difference in terms of what you lost and what you could have lost and what you gained out of the interaction. 70% of a full life bar in the accumulative gain and loss relative to both you and your opponent of that one interaction that was decided by just 2 frames. That's the level of, like, randomness. We have to be honest, okay? It's randomness. That's the level of randomness of, like, a 2-frame difference can mean 70% of a life bar just gets thrown this way or that way. And it can go higher. If both you and your opponent have level 3s, you're gambling when you try to swing for your Hail Mary and they try to swing for their Hail Mary, and you're both gonna fucking splurge and do your combos and your level 3s, you're fucking gambling and fishing for the game. You're gambling and fishing for over 100% of a full health bar in terms of how much you'll take and how much you get to keep that you would have lost if the opponent won the interaction instead. You are gambling with over an entire fucking match in terms of health off of one interaction. So, in that sense, that's why it's difficult to figure out what decision-making is smarter in this game, partially because it's hard to orchestrate those things to happen more frequently for yourself. And there's only so much you can do to control whether or not you happen to get the perfect hits all the time that give you your hugest, biggest damage. But also, when you look at your opponent, when you look at, like, matches that you win, what happened to your opponent? You look at your replays and you're like, well, why didn't they win? Well, it's because they just didn't happen to get their fucking fishing, their big damage. They did a normal and it happened to be blocked, and they committed to a... It was not a hit confirmable, single hit confirmable, so they just committed to canceling it into the drive rush. Like Luke doing standing heavy punch, he's like, you're both sitting around the corner, and he's like fucking moving back and forth here, and he just hits heavy punch and hits drive rush, right? And the difference is night and day. The difference is you either block it and you maybe have to tech a throw or take a throw, or you get hit by it and you lose like a third of your life. So if you look at matches and you are pixels away or fucking fractions of a second away in terms of your decision making or whatever, away from the opponent committing to something and getting no reward to committing to something and getting stupid reward, what does that tell you about the match? Like, does it tell you that you... Like, what does it educate you in terms of your decision-making, how to make better decisions for the future? Did you win as a result of your decision-making, or did the opponent lose as a result of their slight decision-making not winding up in these golden opportunity situations? Because they overspent themselves, because they did... There's so many situations where you survive and you're not getting your entire fucking body dismantled sheerly because the opponent didn't do something that they could have done that would have fucked you up way harder. Just by a split-second decision. Do I do low forward or do I do heavy punch? The damage differential, wildly different. So this is, like, my current conundrum. Like, I'm sitting here pondering and festering over it. Of how to have an explanation for why to do this or that with your meter with Lily. When to use your meter in this way, what opportunities you get, and how you should spend it, how you should risk it on hits that you're not guaranteed on, etc. And, this is, I feel, difficult with Lily, because Lily at, like, 2 bars or less is kind of shitty. Especially if you don't have a bunch of wind stocked up, it's kind of hard to get your meter back, and running away doesn't really help. You kind of just get rushed down and smothered and destroyed from it. So, and the other problem with Lily is that Lily often gets an opportunity to do significant damage with this. However, that costs 4 bars, so even at the best of circumstances, that puts you down to 2. And there's lots of instances where if you measure the damage output, it's shockingly more damage than anything else you could do. It's like clearly the most optimal damage relative to how much you spend. It's just you have to put down so much to get it. And is it ever justifiable? And then you have to start thinking, okay, is it worth burning myself out? Is playing this character, is something I can do with this character worth putting myself in burnout and like overspending? And then how do you play in burnout? And how do you manage controlling a match while you're in burnout? And you can store up your supers, but is supers enough? And is that even a smart way to spend your super if you could have not done that and look for something else? So it's difficult because it's so fucking... Everything can... Like I said, everything is normally fine. Like, I would say 70% of the time, anything that you do is fine, but then 20 to 30% of the time, shit just goes insane. So, fucking 70% of the time, doing that, that's no problem. They get up, they block, it's like whatever. You just take your Oki. And it's fine. 20 to 30% of the time, you're getting fucked up. You're getting DP'd. You're getting perfect parried. You're getting whatever. You back off to neutral, or you like take your opportunity to back off to neutral. They start drive rushing you. They start smothering you. Maybe you don't anticipate how they approach you. You don't react to it in time. You have to hold it. Now you have to start making defensive decisions. You start guessing wrong. Like, no matter how you manage it, the sheer reality of, like, the actual guessing that can be forced upon you can happen, and it's just, yeah. So then I have to wonder, like, do you manage your resources around trying to control this incredibly uncontrollable game? Where fucking anything can suddenly go disastrously wrong in 2 seconds? Or do you try to minimize the gambliness by always taking whatever seems solidly reasonable and, like, taking consistent damage and not taking that much risk and whatever, but it's impossible. Everything is risk. That's the problem. There's no, like, that is the exact thing that I am literally describing to you right now, is that everything that you do, including inaction, is risk. It's all risk. It's not like playing Risk-Averse. It's all fucking risk. So then, how do you play around still trying to manage intelligent decision-making while understanding that it's all much riskier than it even feels in a moment? Like, anything that you do that feels safe, it's not. It could go really badly for you. Just one hit, and then you guess wrong and some throw loops in the corner. You're dead. You lost the fucking round. Now, I think there's, like, the mathematical. There's, like, again, there's math and then there's theory. And, I think the mathematical realities of the game belies, like, some of the theoretical realities of the game that are starting to emerge, like I was talking about with, like, how the top-level players are implementing way more of this, like, mid-range, footsies range perfect parry fishing and stuff, where they are introducing themselves to gambling, but they are doing it in a way that is more, they are engaging in gambling, but they're engaging in gambling that maybe the math is this way or that way, maybe it's not, I don't know, but, like, those are situations where patterns of human behavior emerge that are more consistent than just the mathematical facts of what is physically possible to occur. So, you know, regardless of the infinite possibilities that they could do, 60% of the time, they hit this button at this timing in this situation, and you can perfect parry it. And, that's just like those habits form out of the metagame. Because people, as they get used to a game and they get used to the flow of how they should play the game, they start falling into a comfort zone and reducing their total number of options rather than increasing it. And, those things, because they want to simplify their game in a way so that they can focus on, they can train their instincts to what makes the most optimal sense for the character, and then put their focus into the match rather than any of, like, drastically changing how they approach any given situation, and that will naturally always end up creating a meta of how to play a character, or how this player plays a character, that will result in relatively consistent timings in this mid-range for certain button or special presses that will result in perfect parry opportunities. And that's where, like, the gambling starts to like become something that you can actually work at, something that you can actually, like, look at and understand, that you can form a theory around, a reason why you gamble in this way instead of that way. So in some ways, like, that's, again, like I said, it's very difficult because every time you look at any of your replays, like, it's hard to measure what you should do differently because there is so much of a factor in the match of what your opponent should have or could have done differently. Like, they could have gotten so much more reward or wound up landing a much bigger hit in this way or that way, etc. And it's just like, you just got lucky that they neutered themselves by wasting their meter in this way when they could have landed something much bigger if they had used it later on in a different way. And so, you know, this game is very hard to measure and document and record the logic of your decision making, because your opponents are also dealing with similarly confusing and difficult decision making, and it's hard to say what they did that was a good decision or a bad decision relative to what they knew at the time and what they were seeing, and usually there's a lot of things that probably could have gone very differently, so, you know. But in that way, I'm almost like, I have this thought in my head, and I don't know if it's true, but it is like, you know, we're talking about theory, math or theory, this is a theory of mine, that you can play in such a way that, like, you offer the opponent things that will, like, make them more predictable. Like, for instance, with Lily, I think it's a very important thing to jump a lot when you're close to the opponent. Why? Well, there's a multitude of reasons. If they press a button in reversal, and depending on what button they press, maybe you'll open them up. Maybe you'll just get free offense. If they jump backwards in fear of your command grabs or something, you might be able to air them. Depends on what you react with. Although Lily does have a one button invuln thing that she can air people with, so she is. Is it worth doing the modern input version of it, and in certain aerial exchanges? I don't know. She also has like this that you can do, where you can do this really early and has a billion fucking active frames, so if they jump out, they'll get clipped by it no matter what, if they try to air her, anything. But also, the primary reason that I think it's very good to jump when you're in close range and doing like close range buttons and pressure on the opponent with Lily, the primary reason is because if you jump a lot in the close range, it will condition the opponent to look for anti-airing it. And if they are looking to anti-air it, expecting you to jump, that is something you can afford to let them do, because anti-airs, by and large, don't do that much damage in this game. And if you condition them to look to be trying to anti-air you, it will mean that that they are exhibiting a behavior that you can predict. It'll mean that they are fucking sitting there or walking backwards looking for the anti-air. And if they are doing that, they are on the ground and you can fucking drive rush up and command grab them. So that's like where I'm looking at how to navigate the weirdness of this game right now, is I'm looking at like, how can I, if the game is determined so much by the opponent making the wrong decisions more so than necessarily you making the right decisions, or at least some combination of both, but you can't eliminate the opponent's bad decision making as a massive component of the entire match. How can I trick the opponent into making decisions that won't benefit him in the long run? And so that's one of those things. Another one of those things is I'm looking for any situation. I'm trying to like theorize what's a situation where I can convince my opponent to do a fucking button into drive rush cancel on block so that I can like drive reversal it, or just take it, or just block it, or whatever. What are situations where I can offer them that fucking carrot and get them to splurge their meter on something not super threatening? Like, how can I guide and direct their decision making in ways that are slightly that won't result in an eventual situation of we're both in neutral in some way, and you know they hit fucking heavy punch or something, and it happens to clip me on the startup of a move or on the recovery of something or just whatever into fucking half my life. How can I avoid that being one of the possible outcomes of a situation? And how can I make the opponent guess in such a way that is unlikely for them that to be their decision, and a possibility amongst what they are looking for in a given moment. So if I have to jump a lot and get anti-air to make them like look for this opening that I'm giving them, this like seemingly safe opening that I'm giving them to consistently damage me, if that is enough to make things play out at least a bit more consistently, and for the opponent to not be fishing for other things that might fuck me up way harder that I don't want them to do, then that's totally worth it. Now, all of this is to say, I think that there is stuff to work with to craft this theory of how to play Lily in this neutral, in offensive situations, to your advantage. That being said, Lily's number one problem, and the problem that, like, this is Lily's number one problem because it's a problem that there's nothing much more to say about it. There's nothing much more you can do about it, and it's getting overrun by offense. And it's like, if you fight a really strong player, playing a strong character that has a lot of strong offense and whatever, there's only so many tools in your arsenal that you can use. But, you know, if they force guesses that are more guessy than not guessy, and more in the opponent's favor and very difficult to deal with, and you know, whatever, there's only so much you can do on defense with any character, but especially with Lily, other than just run these same, much more simplistic gambles. And it's like, that's a situation where you have much less agency as a player, because, like, in this neutral and all these other things, you can make all these sorts of decisions. Will they work out in your favor? Maybe not, but you can make the decisions of, like, how much meter do I spend? How much whatever? How do I manage these resources? How active am I? How am I attacking their mental stack? Am I playing patiently and looking for, like, sharp openings? Am I acting proactively or reactively? Whatever. What am I doing to throw off the opponent for their expectations of what I'm looking at and what I will do? But when you're suffering the brunt of full frontal fucking offense, you have much less agency as a player. You don't get to manage your resources, because it's not like you can spend a resource and, like, it's not like if the opponent is applying offense, you have the option of, like, spending all your drive gauge but saving you from the situation. No. When you're under the duress of very straightforward, cut-and-dried offense, there's no management, there's no anything. You simply have to guess right. And that is the most difficult part, and the part with the least complexity, the least options at your disposal. You can't even really manage risk-reward. You have to fucking guess and anticipate and react correctly and effectively and well enough. And there's really no other... I cannot... Like, I'm a fucking pretty abstract thinker. I like thinking abstractly. I cannot think of a single fucking other thing, no matter how abstract we're talking about, in terms of how you can approach defense at a certain point, other than you just have to guess and anticipate and react better to make up for that. That will always be your number one fucking weakness, and you can't do anything about it other than just do those things but better, honestly. The only thing you can really do is, like, make up for it in other capacities, and, you know, you have to... I'm a timid player, so I often don't take as many opportunities as I need to, and I'm trying to adjust that behavior for this game. But, you know, you have to, when you have the opportunity, when the shoe's on the other foot, you have to do the same thing. You have to fucking kill. You have to, you know, fuck them up and, you know, have them being miserable that all they can do is guess and anticipate and react.